Hello, second video of Saturday. This is based on an article in the UK Telegraph that I came to after I'd finished this morning's video. Normally this could be seen as just an article to stir up some trouble and good pub argument between English people and German people. But I'm hoping that I'll be able to fit it into what I hope was the larger picture that I presented in this morning's video. Headline: UK households wealthier than Germany's, says UBS, the Swiss bank. So what we're after is UK households, German households. This article says that UBS says that UK households are wealthier. David Cameron may have left Brussels with fewer friends on Friday morning, but at least he can console himself in the knowledge that British households are wealthier than their German equivalents. Okay, let's get into it. There's not much to do. So Jamie Dunkley writes for us. Analysts at UBS say British households have more housing and financial assets even after allowing for the higher levels of personal debt. Yeah, so far so good. In a note amusingly entitled Eine kleine Bank Balances, UBS says, most UK household debt is mortgage related. We know. And a typical household buys a home to secure a safe future for itself in retirement. I'm not sure that's true, but UBS justifies it thus. Put differently, a home-owning household has protected itself from any mismatch between rental payments and pension income during retirement. So the implication is that in retirement, you can't control the rent that you have to pay, except if you own your own house. Now, I would say that this article is going to be on the front of a great, huge wave of trying to get Europe to enter into the Thatcher-Reagan revolution that hopefully I went towards explaining this morning. We continue, only these 3 paragraphs, but the rest of the article I can recommend reading and have a go at the comments. This can only happen if the household takes on debt during its working life, so debt levels are high. That characterises UK households as prudent and not reckless. The alternative is a household that may have to depend on the state for housing during retirement. Now, I'll come back to that after I've finished the next 2 paragraphs. So, it seems Margaret Thatcher's dream of a property-owning democracy is paying off for the UK, especially when compared with German preference for renting rather than owning their homes. According to UBS, net wealth in the UK is almost €375,000, I don't know either, per household, ahead of just over 250,000 figure for Germany. Okay, now this article, as I say, is excellent for setting people arguing that think they know about Germany and the UK. But the big picture that I'm trying to present this Saturday can be got from the top paragraph here. This can only happen if the household takes on debt during its working life, so debt levels are actually high. This characterises UK households as prudent, not reckless. That represents what I think is they're going to try and shove down the Europeans' throats. The alternative is a household that may have to depend on the state for housing during retirement. Now, what we have here is 2 Ponzi schemes. Now, for my mind, or for this video, we have only got 2 macro Ponzi schemes going. It's the private Ponzi scheme or the public Ponzi scheme. Which side? This is public Ponzi scheme. Government Ponzi scheme or private Ponzi scheme. The UK and the US did the Thatcher revolution, which moved over to the private Ponzi scheme, where they lever up, borrow huge quantities of money, and it pays off. It works. As the UBS stroke this article is saying, they're prudent and not reckless. When you get into a Ponzi scheme early, this is prudent and not reckless. It's just towards the end of a Ponzi scheme where it becomes reckless. And it's just the art of knowing when the Ponzi scheme is going to come to an end. Now, what we are seeing, I think, is the European public government Ponzi scheme coming to an end. As in the reliance on, well, we pay higher taxes and they provide higher services, so we spend our income on going to the theatre, let's say, and in retirement the future generation will pay higher taxes to pay for us to be well taken care of. Now, this Ponzi scheme has just closed in Europe. 26 countries has just closed, and they're going over to the UK, US, Thatcherite private Ponzi scheme. Now we would have to look round the European nations to see whether it is possible to go over to the private scheme. German economy is absolutely classically ideal for it, perfectly set up for it. The German mentality is not set up for it at all. As always, the French are in the middle. They could go for it, and they have gone for it slightly already, but would them going for it on a major scale, and that's the only way to go into a Ponzi scheme, is in 100% or nothing. Would they go 100% or nothing? I don't think so. And then you've got to look at the periphery countries like Spain, Greece. Italy is slightly different because for various reasons, but Spain have already been into the private Ponzi scheme, and it's kind of blown up in their face, and they have got no choice anymore. So will the euro area as a whole be able to go over enough to the private Ponzi scheme to keep everything going? I say not a bloody hope. But let's be absolutely sure, this government public Ponzi scheme has just closed. So they've got to do something, and the private Ponzi scheme, the Thatcherite Reagan borrow and bid up asset prices Ponzi scheme is the only option out there. If they don't go for it in Europe, the whole thing closes. It's the only way. Or there just won't be enough money circulating to keep everyone alive. Okay? So, plenty of petty arguments to be had about this article. Petty ones. But if you think about it in the huge, from my first video, the government Ponzi scheme has now closed, and they're going to try and run the private one. Try and work out in your own brain whether you think the entire Eurozone will go over to the private Ponzi scheme enough for it to work, because Ponzi schemes only work if enough people go into it big style. And then when you come along with me, probably, and realise that they won't go in big enough, try and imagine what's going to happen when there is no scheme at all working in Europe. That's it for today. Bye.